The attack on the bridge really struck a nerve with Putin since he's been hitting really hard with the bombardments against Odessa.
Bombarded Ukraine with another wave of missiles and drones in the latest overnight attack. Ukraine says it shot down more than half of the missiles and drones, and at least 12 people were injured in the Odesa region, including a 9-year-old boy. So James Waterhouse is with our partners at the BBC, is following all the latest. He's in Kyiv and joining us now. So, James, Odessa is nowhere near the front lines. What can you tell us about this latest attack?
Well, there is a backdrop here of widespread missile and drone attacks across Ukraine. Russia has sustained with this tactic for a number of months now. But why Odessa is significant is because we are now 2 days since Russia pulled out of a landmark grain deal, which allowed Ukraine to export grain through the Black Sea through an agreed route from that region. And as part of that deal, Russia agreed not to target ports and infrastructure. And here we are 48 hours later after Moscow pulled out, and we have seen cranes damaged, we've seen huge craters, and 3,000 people have been left.
Oh, I see. I didn't realize that the grain deal that the Ukraine had required Russia not to bomb port cities and stuff. Um, well, it's unlikely for them to be able to get such a deal a second time around.
Left without electricity. I think it's the Kremlin partly trying to show that it's not bluffing when it said it was pulling out, which it's threatened to do before. But what's also interesting is that Turkey's President Erdogan, one of the key brokers behind this deal, is still confident that it can be saved. But it's clear Russia is looking to harm Ukraine in just about every way possible.
James, I want to turn now to Crimea. Thousands of people there have been evacuated after a fire at a military facility there. What are we learning about this?
As ever, when we're talking about events inside occupied Crimea, there's often more that we don't know instead of what we do. Now, we've seen a number of explosions at an ammunition depot. We're told by the Russian installed authorities there that thousands of people have been evacuated, 2,000 people from around 4 villages, and that a major road has had to be partially closed. But we don't know the cause of the explosion. You'll never hear Ukraine officially claim responsibility. We've been told that President Putin of Russia has been made aware. He's increased Russia's naval presence in the Black Sea. But it's never clear whether this is a false justification, a reasoning for Russia to increase military activity, or whether it was a military act by Ukraine. I think what's beyond doubt is that many in Kyiv will take a great deal of delight, because Crimea is somewhere that Moscow's tried to present as a fortress. Now, whenever it comes under attack, like with the major Kerch bridge a few days ago, it undermines the essence of Russia's occupation of so much of Ukrainian territory.
Most of Putin and Russia's has been illusions, and the invasion of the Ukrainian people has broken that illusion, like the illusion that the Russian military is pretty powerful. No, they're pretty weak, and they got some pretty bad weapons.
The European Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee is urging the International Criminal Court to issue an arrest warrant for the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, for the country's role in the Ukraine war. Now, as far as I knew, Belarus wasn't sort of actively participating in the war, though they've been quite welcoming. And, there were these reports of Russia moving nuclear weapons to Belarus. What exactly is the accusation? What is Belarus accused of doing? And is this is this like a real thing or not? Does the ICC actually have any power?
Well, the ICC depends on its signatories. Now, Russia and Belarus are not part of the deal, and so are therefore not compelled to respond to arrest warrants.
Yeah, only nations that have signed with the ICC and that kind of stuff have will arrest people that they've signed arrest warrants for. So pretty much when the ICC puts out an arrest warrant, that's just a ban of entry to other nations that have the agreement.
Nevertheless, things can change over time. Regimes can collapse, and when we're talking about Alexander Lukashenko of Belarus, whether we're talking about Vladimir Putin of Russia, we're talking about one-man states. And we've seen, certainly within Russia, the fragility of those states for the first time, really, in decades, where rebellions can happen and figures can fall from power. So this is what the ICC and its allies are wanting to do, to try and apply longer-term political pressure. But I think these also go beyond accusations. We can say without doubt that, Belarus has been an active partner in Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. It allowed hundreds of thousands of Russian troops not just to train inside Belarusian territory, but to mount its major offensive from the north on that cold February morning last year on the capital, Kiev. It was those soldiers that travelled south, and it was those soldiers that committed war crimes when their advances were frustrated. You've mentioned there Lukashenko allowing Russia to station its nuclear weapons in the country. They are.
I mean, they're not like fully actively participating in the war, but they are a support group, and that is enough to be considered participating in a war, just like how the United States is participating in the war by supporting the Ukrainian government.
Are a major ally of Russia. They have economic ties, and Alexander Lukashenko needs the Kremlin to stay in power. He's been propped up in the past with similar uprisings. So they are an active ally, a complicit ally when it comes to Moscow's full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
James Waterhouse, thank you.